Everything Everywhere All at Once is not exactly a conventional film. In fact, some may actually find it a little grotesque. But the important thing to us collectors is it worth purchasing on 4K UHD disc, particularly as I record this, it's not actually available in the UK and you need to import it from overseas. Stay tuned to find out. One thing, this one certainly has got an alternative sense of humour to it. May not be to everyone's taste, but I'll come on to that shortly. It's a multiverse type of story, and I think those of us that have been watching superhero films have got used to these multiverse type of things. And because I like time-travelling, time-twisting sort of adventures, this one did look like it was another one that was up my alley. So when Mondo Chelovek Movies, that's John and Mondo Chelovek, he gave it a quick plug or a mention on his channel, I thought, had to import that from the USA to get it in 4K. And so when I ordered the 4K of Blowout recently from Wow HD to ship a copy in from the USA, I added Everything Everywhere All at Once to the same basket, and they duly arrived together about 2 weeks later. I wouldn't say that it was quite what I was expecting. It's basically a family drama. There's nothing much more to it than that, and I was expecting something a bit more convoluted. But however you break it down, it is essentially just a family drama, and there is a good message to take away from it at the end. So there are some good positives in this, and there's one piece of editing that I thought was quite stunning, and it must have taken a lot of toing, froing, going back to it and coming away. It wasn't long enough, didn't have enough detail. Probably just one frame at a time in each sequence they put on screen as we go through the multiverses, all the different lives that the Michelle Yeoh character has lived or is living, and we see them one after the other flashing before our eyes. Quite impressive to look at. And as soon as that sequence went, they do it a few times, but there's one later on in the film where it seems to go on for about 10, maybe even 15 seconds, just going back and forwards to it. And I said at the end of that particular sequence, that must have taken a hell of a long time to edit. Very impressive. And there are a few more things like that, not least that when I was looking up technical details of it, it turns out there were 6 or 7 of them that worked on the special effects in this, the computer effects. And these were the people just working on the film who were all self-taught. So quite impressive filmmaking. And of course there's all the martial arts in it, which Michelle Yeoh is just brilliant at, and I think that's what we all really like her for. So it's interesting that when it was finished, I said to my wife that this is the type of film that the people responsible for dishing out awards at all these ceremonies we see around the beginning of each year, this is the sort of film they tend to love. So I thought, I bet this is going to be nominated or win loads of awards. Look it up, and it's already either been nominated or has won just about everything out there. So it's no surprise really to see the Michelle Yeoh being nominated for Best Actress in just about everything. But I suppose this has been the first film in many years that has been a big success, maybe since Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, where she has had a major role and we can look at her front and centre and see how good she really is. In fact, I'd say all the characters in this are believable as ordinary, unremarkable people, realistic portrayals in a contradictory, unrealistic setting. The family drama that is the basis of the storyline, it turns out that whichever universe Michelle Yeoh's character slides over to, she's going through the same sort of angst or similar angst with her family just about everywhere she goes. There's one universe where she didn't actually marry her husband. She becomes a famous actress. He goes off and earns a fortune, and they're much happier in that. But do they come together at the end of it? Does it all wrap up? You'll have to watch the movie to see. But I have to say, this film is completely nuts. It's obviously come from the mind of a complete madman, or madmen in this case, because it's directed by 2 of them who both have a first name of Daniel, hence the director is down as Daniels. But clearly they've got quite a sense of humour, and a sick sense of humour, which won't be appealing to everyone. There were parts of it that I really didn't like, as I mentioned at the start, grotesque. It's really quite vulgar in places, and I could have done without that. I'm sure other people will do too. But I know a lot of people will love it. They'll just find it all hilarious, and they'll get through this without having to fast forward through any of it. But as often happens when I don't particularly care for a film, or I think something wasn't right with that, I've gone back to watch this again, and the second time around I knew where these bits that I found a bit hard to get through were, and I just fast forwarded through them, which made it a lot easier for me, and I was able to concentrate more on the image quality, the sound, the performances of the actors and actresses, and see the film as it really is. And it is crazy. It comes to one universe where Michelle Yeoh and her daughter are just portrayed as a pair of rocks, and they're talking to each other with just subtitles on the screen. Now, I know we've seen things like that before in off-the-wall comedies, things like that, but this was just totally ridiculous. So you've got to be prepared for that. There's another thing I think you've got to be prepared for, because quite often with films that you're having a bit of trouble with, sometimes they just end and you get the credits. Well, that happens in the first third of this, but you don't realise it at the time perhaps, but it's a film within a film. So I think it's possible that you need to be aware of that coming, so you don't think, what? Because my wife and I were looking at it and I said, surely that isn't the end, because there was no conclusion there. It's not the ending, so just relax, sit back and enjoy the rest of it if you can get through it without going, oh no, at various times. But I'm sure most people will think it's hilarious. As for how this one was shot, it was shot in a mix of 2.8K and 3.4K video, but overall I think it looks pretty good. The first half an hour, 40 minutes are a bit wishy-washy, not what you would expect from a 4K, and I think a lot of people look at that and think this one isn't very good, but I think that was a deliberate look that the directors were going for, and you will find that later on there are some particularly colourful sequences where the HDR really does make it stand out. So I was thinking for much of it, maybe you would be better off recommending the Blu-ray for this one rather than the 4K, because there isn't much to the 4K to make it stand apart from the Blu-ray. But I went to look at the Blu-ray and it turned out my player wouldn't actually play it. There's a lot of reasons for that which I won't go into, but anyway, this was one occasion where my computer set up to run a Zone A, a Region A Blu-ray did not work, so I went to get all the updates, everything that you need to do, and nothing worked, and I thought, oh well, I think I've got a pretty good idea of how good the Blu-ray will look, and I don't think it will look as good as the 4K overall because of these distinctive HDR sequences which you get, and they're invariably when the screen is in the taller format, because there are 4 different screen ratios used in this. There's the 1.33 to 1 for when Michelle Yeoh's character is having flashbacks. There's 1.85 to 1, and there's also 2.35 to 1, 2.40 to 1, that sort of aspect ratio. And also a bit of 2.0 to 1 somewhere, but I didn't really notice that in here because I was getting a bit involved in the film and all the fighting that was going on, all the action and all the comedy. The sound is Dolby Atmos, which I'm running Dolby Digital 5.1 in here. Sounded pretty fabulous, a lot of bass early on, which I think a lot of people will notice if they've got a big subwoofer. It had an estimated budget of $25 million, and it took at the worldwide box office $105 million. So a pretty big success, and there may be more to come if this does well on the home movie and the streaming markets. In summary, I think I'd have to say that you'll all have to make up your own mind about this one. The message I've taken away from it is live for now and love what you have. Overall, it's a film that makes David Lynch's Eraserhead look like a conventional movie. Okay, might be taking things a little too far there, but I'm sure you'll get what I mean. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like and perhaps consider subscribing so I'll be encouraged to carry on creating content like this. Until the next video, bye bye for now.